This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and Upsnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
This is your host of the day, Regan Archibald, and really excited to be with everybody today. We got a really, really exciting and cool show that we're going to be diving into. And so today we're we may have someone a guest join us, but we're going to jump into some really cool case studies and things. But before we jump in there, today's show brought to you by thesmartmedicine.com. For all your supplement needs, head to thesmartmedicine.com and grab some supplements. We've been working on the brain course in our hacks every Wednesday at 4:30. We've been doing the brain accelerator course, and that is awesome. You can look up Inner Genius on thesmartmedicine.com, and there is some really great brain enhancements. So take a look at that. And also want to just reiterate, if you are not part of our Health Accelerator community, our hacks, please go to AcuEastWest.com/hack. That's HAC, and join us there every Wednesday at 4:30. We do live training. Right now we're going through the Brain Accelerator course. We have one more week, and then we'll be starting a new session the following week. So every Wednesday, that is like your cup of wellness. And so don't miss that every week. It is a good time. And so we got a really cool challenge started. I nailed mine. My night got all disrupted by my 2-year-old, but I still got my 4-minute Tabata workout in this morning with some kettlebells and push-ups and some good stuff. So staying strong, Regan.
Well done, man.
Yeah, so felt good. Yeah, so let's dive in.
Awesome. Well, first thing, when you look at what the big challenge is today, the biggest challenge that we see in humans' lives, from what I can tell, is complexity and overwhelm when it comes to healthcare. And so it's no different than if you start looking at engineering for a car, and you say, man, well, I don't even know where to begin. If I had to engineer a car, what would I do first? And so that's the same thing in health. And so what we're going to share with you today is I'm going to show you some case studies about how you can gain enormous clarity on health. And this is not just, this is what we're calling a holistic integration of medicine, because we're going to look at things from a broader perspective where you put in science. And I'm going to show you our 3 core tests that every human needs to have before they launch into their overall health journey. So we're going to go through program design. We're going to talk about some ways that you can really maximize what you're doing. And so, Kate, there will be a little bit of role play between us because, we don't want this to get too dry and mundane. But I think this podcast will be one that you'll want to go and review over and over again, because you're going to see this opening of a brand new form of medicine that we call collaborative medicine that's come out today. And so the very first thing, let's start with the challenge. So the challenge is a lack of clarity. And in our healthcare model right now, conventional medicine, if you look at it, every year we study the trends, and there's over 100,000 people that die every year from properly written prescriptions. So this is properly written prescriptions, Cade. Over 100,000 people that die every year. So this seems like an opportunity that we could maybe help people, avoid this.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you think of polypharmacy syndrome means if you are on 5 or more medications, you've got 100% chance of having an adverse reaction. So, and that's like no small feat, because yesterday, I must have seen a half a dozen new patients, and I'm looking at the amount of medications they're on. And it was pretty shocking to me to find out that the majority of those people were on 5 or more medications. And so as I'm trying to sort through their symptoms and find out, well, why are you tired all the time? I had one patient almost fall asleep in my clinic because she was on so much gabapentin. I found out she was on 600 milligrams 3 times a day, which is an enormous dose. And she's in her 20s. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Doctors just kept pushing her aside. I looked at another gentleman and I find out, he's on medications that are completely off label, which means there's going to be some downstream side effects that can come from this. And he, he's like, well, they're just trying to help me lose weight, doing their job. But unfortunately, it was causing a lot more damage than it was being helpful. And so what we're going to talk about today is what I think is a major health crisis. And this health crisis is due to the lack of people's ability to take control over their health and really dig in and know what to do. But the problem is most people go on Google, and then what do you find on Google? You give yourself, you self-diagnose, and then you self-treat, and then you're wondering, like, why is my health not getting anywhere? And so we're going to go through the whole process. It's going to be a very exciting show. So as we go through here, feel free to ask any questions. You can send in your labs. If you're like, hey, Regan, I had a couple of questions on my labs, you can ask me those as well, and I'm happy to dive in. So ready, Cade? Should we go for it?
Let's do it.
Hey, so we're going to start out by framing this, and we're going to talk about this really cool thing called abundance and scarcity. And when it comes to health, this is such a critical piece of your mindset because there's a lot of power that comes in your life if you just start looking at your health and saying, hey, there's something I can do about this. So in the abundance cycle, everything starts with gratitude. And I would have to argue that gratitude is one of the most powerful emotions that we can have. And it's a mindset that you can cultivate, just like you can build big biceps. Remember last night, Kate, we were talking about Zoe telling me, have you been lifting horses? She looked at my arms. I was like, that was a great compliment. Not even close, but I'm like, more like 10-pound dumbbells. No. But yeah, gratitude is something where we all start, and that's the most powerful place to begin when it comes to health. And so right now, just take a step back and name a few things that you're grateful for. How many of you actually woke up today and you can take a breath? That's huge, especially if you've had some of these respiratory infections, COVID infections. I mean, that can be something that you take for granted, and then it's gone, and you're like, oh, so let's all take a deep breath in and just have some gratitude for the ability to breathe. And so that's where abundance begins, is with gratitude. And this is, this whole sequence of events is what we're going to be talking about, is staying in this abundance process. The next phase in it is creativity. And this was taught to me by Dan Sullivan, this whole abundance cycle. And creativity is when now you start looking at your health and you say, there are so many opportunities out there for me to be healthier. People stop improving when they believe that their health is a destination, not a journey. And so creativity gets stopped and thwarted because we don't have gratitude for the health we have. We just get this belief system that we are already there. And there's no more creativity because either the FDA or Fauci or your local doctor who has been practicing for 30 years and just sees things through one perspective, well, creativity is gone. And one of the things that I've done as the founder of East West Health, is I've always looked at medicine, and I used East as a broad way of bringing in holistic medicine, and then West as a broad way of bringing in all the sciences and all the technology that can really influence people's lives. And so that takes an enormous amount of creativity because, Kate, as you've seen it, people are certainly in need of staying creative when you have two different medical models coming together. Have you noticed the little bit of creativity that's necessary?
Oh yeah, it's not just a little, it's a lot. Um, yeah, and I think it takes a very open mind to like this is in order to get the east west model. It really takes the full abundance cycle to really get it to work because the whole team has to have that really creative mindset. Um, and it we I love when you feel like you're in like this narrow space. I'm just going back one of the phases before is the gratitude is like, and when you can actually look at things from a really like gratitude level, it just like opens things up. And this is your point around opens it up to creativity. And yes, it takes so much creativity when you have Western uh, medical doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs working with acupuncturists, and they got two separate sets of training and two separate sets of mindsets, and coming together. It's a beautiful thing though. It's really rad.
Yeah, and it's no different than when you have like NASA now, who has pretty much stopped their space exploration. They started to get creative when you had someone like Elon Musk with SpaceX come in, and he's like, "Hey, I want to go to the moon, and eventually I want to colonize Mars." And so they're like, "Well, we need satellites up there," and so now all the contracts are going to SpaceX, and that's called cooperation, which is the next phase. And so in healthcare, when you have a cooperative team, it's one of the most valuable resources you can have on your side, because health is not to be mismanaged. It's not to be just swept under the rug as like, yeah, you're lucky to be healthy. It's like, no, health is actually a human right. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of cooperation in a lot of the dogmatic medicine that's out there today. And I think this is one of the reasons we're in a health crisis is the pharmaceutical companies, they just want us on their medication. I mean, unfortunately, they are a very profit-driven organization, and maybe 20 or 40 or 50 years ago, especially, doctors were, the real breadwinners in society, and some of them still are, but that has been far surpassed, where the profits are going to the executives. It's people in suits. And so the cooperation becomes now more than ever, is where you have to realize that if you want to get the best healthcare, you're going to have to pay for some things out of pocket. And I know everyone on this show has invested a significant amount of resources in their health. And I want to congratulate you for taking your health seriously enough where you're not just going to focus on what your little insurance card will cover, but you recognize the value of cooperating with a bigger group of creative doctors who are going to give you things that are not mainstream. Because the big pharmaceutical companies, they know if they can just get you on that, you get on that hypertensive medication, and now you're on that blood thinner because maybe you had a stroke, or risk of stroke, and now you're on the Lipitor, and so they've got all this combination of medications coming at you. Well, that's now you have a bigger opportunity, which is the next phase, if you can actually start looking outside of that box. And so once you start looking for opportunities in healthcare, you say, wow, well, investing in my health, I want to find somebody who is on the cutting edge, and someone who's innovative and has some ingenuity, because there's opportunities everywhere once you start looking outside of your insurance plan. And have you noticed that, Kate, is that when we try to cram our patients down the insurance funnel, it gets pretty tight as far as what we can do and what we can't do. And what's that like for us as an organization?
Yeah, well, it makes it really really challenging, because now you're ultimately, rather than the medical providers and the healthcare team dictating care, it's more insurance starts dictating care, because now we start saying, oh well, we can't do this because insurance doesn't cover it. We can do this procedure. It's going to be helpful, but we'd rather do this procedure, but that's going to be out of pocket. And I think it's frustrating from a medical model because I think most people they're spending everyone's spending a lot on their health insurance, and then to
Yeah.
find out that, oh man, it doesn't cover what I actually need and want. It's frustrating, and that's a hard mindset to get out of. And I think there's other ways to find plans um, that cover what some of the basic things. And then my I my mindset is I'm in charge of my own health. I'll take charge of that. If I have something catastrophic, if I have, really, something really damaging or something acute that just suddenly comes up, or I break an arm, I have to go to the ER, something like that, more emergency based medicine. I think insurance is a beautiful thing, and it covers that for a specific reason. But when it comes to our own personal health, we're in charge of that. We got to set some time and invest money towards our health on a very regular basis. So that's my thought process and theory around the whole insurance model. Is I think we've made it so everyone thinks that insurance is going to take care of their health, which is not necessarily the case. Insurance is for when there's a loss.
Yeah.
So when your health's completely depleted, yes, insurance will step in. But when you're at a chronic phase where you can still go on living, insurance is probably not gonna step up very often.
And that's where chronic disease is responsible for almost 90% of our healthcare costs. And if you look at Medicare, it's the last 2 weeks of life where people are just dragging on, dragging on. That's where we spend the most amount of money. And yes, I am into life-saving measures. I'm not, saying that that's not important, but I'm also saying that, man, in Chinese medicine, there's this concept called compressed morbidity, and what that means is you live your life to the fullest. It's similar to Grandpa Christensen. He lived a great life. He had this wood shop downstairs. I mean, he was a trapper and a fur trader, and then he ended up doing so many different cool entrepreneurial things. He was a guy that walked around on a wooden leg because he got gangrene in the 1920s, and just a tough dude. I mean, shot a guy who broke into his house and pushed our grandma down and tried stealing his coins. He was a coin collector too. And so, but he was a rugged guy. You don't mess with Grandpa Christensen. But when he died in his sleep. I mean, he was 93, and he was working in his woodshed, mowed the lawn, and then went to sleep and died peacefully. But that's compressed morbidity. When you get to the end of your life, boom, you go. And that was very first lesson I had with my Japanese doctor, Dr. Maekawa, in acupuncture. She was training her patient how to get healthy enough and confident enough to allow her body to move to the next stage of existence. And so it's this beautiful thing, but yet we drag on and we hang on to life, and then we keep throwing medications. So we're actually adding years to people's lives that are less healthy. And so our goal here on Your Healthy Self is, let's add some health to your years and years to your life, right? So that's what we're doing. And that's where this whole abundance cycle comes in, because now we're on ingenuity. There's 6 steps to the abundance cycle. And so, it starts with gratitude. Step 2 is creativity. Step 3 is the cooperation. Step 4 is opportunities. Step 5 is ingenuity. And then step 6 is the exponential growth, because, it's kind of like compounded interest in your health. As you start making these small improvements, it's subtle in the beginning. And you're like, am I really getting better? And, I ask patients all the time, how are you feeling? How you doing there? I feel better, but, I don't know if that's just in my mind, or maybe it's just some of these peptides that I'm on right now, but I'm starting to feel better. But then we talk 6 months later, and we rerun their labs, and I'm like, you've had a 20% improvement in your blood results. This is phenomenal. And that's where the exponential and the compounding effect comes on, because 20% improvement means like a 2,000% improvement in your cellular pathways. I mean, that's no small feat to have that big of improvement. So this is where the exponential opportunity comes in health. and speaking back to if you look at the abundance cycle and you say, well, there's this abundance in healthcare right now. You can start to see, well, healthcare abundance, a whole process happens when you've got a team of individuals who are cooperating on your behalf. They're your advocates, they're your mentors, they're your scientists, they're your engineers, your architecting, your health, everything, and they're looking for opportunities. And they bring out that ingenuity. So it's we try everything ourselves first, Kate. I mean, we've been trying a lot of these therapies for years before we ever introduced them. And so then we bring in the peptides, for example. And what have you noticed as we brought peptide therapy into our clinics?
I think it's accelerated patient outcomes and patient results significantly. So it's created less, so some of the challenges that patients and people experience with health is sometimes it's time intensive. And so, coming in on a weekly or twice a week basis to get acupuncture and get treatments and chiropractic care and things like that, sometimes that can be really, really just not feasible for some patients. And some of our patients are great because, they maybe you're retired, things like that, and it's a little easier, but working, it's much more difficult. And so that's where we've been able to cut visit times and quantities down with peptides as well, because it's like you're giving yourself a treatment out of your house, and it takes 30 seconds to drop the syringe and shoot it in, or in some instances it's a capsule. And so those little things have been huge, and it's a beautiful thing because you look at it from a medication base. You could say it's similar to medication from a result standpoint, but it's not masking the symptom like medications do, and it doesn't have the downstream side effects of long-term use issues. It's like just enhancing your body's own ability to heal itself.
Yeah,
it's really rad.
Yeah, and that's like I took sarcotropin IPA today, and they changed it, so now it's a plunger. So it's just like the Tamaro instead of
I
the
like that
little scoop. It's way better. And
the little scoop. I always leave like little amount in the bottom, and you feel like you're wasting it.
Yeah,
But
dirty everywhere. Exactly. Now you don't have to waste it. That peptide's so powerful, the sarcotropin, because this is, increasing IGF-1 levels. We talked about this last night. IGF-1 actually controls the gene expression for BDNF, which allows you to have better brain plasticity. And so, just these little things that we bring in, you guys may think like, oh, this is, there's so many options, but actually what we've done in this abundance cycle is we've looked at the abundance of opportunities out there, like stem cell therapy and regenerative medicine. I mean, we've been deploying that for just under a decade, and we've seen just a rapid expansion in people's ability to heal. And now we're able, the FDA changed a lot of their guidelines, and so some of the products we've used in the past are no longer available. But what we're going to have is we're working with the FDA, we're working with other scientists like Neil Reardon, and with Signature Biologics, and pretty soon we'll have an IND and some very interesting treatments that are available on the stem cell and regenerative medicine side, which I'm super excited about. So, it's just like, if you can stay creative, you find people to cooperate with, because remember when we met Neil Reardon at the Perinatal Stem Cell Conference, that was the week before the country got shut down. Him and I were speaking on the same stage. He's the world's leading researcher, him and Arnold Kaplan in stem cell therapy. He's got a clinic down in Panama, and now he's opened up a clinic in Texas, and he's played, by the FDA rules. He's got an IND. And so very soon you guys are going to hear from him and hear some of the new things we're doing. So there's, what I'm saying is, like, if you can stay in the abundance cycle when it comes to your health, and if you don't, beat yourself up, because so many of you just, you feel like, oh man, I had 3 bad days in a row. I'm just not making improvements. I think I need to go back on the medication. And I know that it can be so frustrating when you've got chronic conditions. But I can tell you there's so much abundance out there. Don't give up. Give us a call right now and say, hey, I want to get on top of my health right away. Because here's what happens when you get trapped in the other end, the scarcity cycle. So here's the very first thing that I'm going to warn you guys when you're dropping out of this abundance cycle. The very first thing that is the clue that you are entering into a danger zone is lack. Feeling I've got a lack of health. I don't have my metabolism that I want. I don't have the hormones. I don't have the financial resources to figure this out. I don't have the time. And when you go in this lack cycle, then fear creeps in. And Kate, how do you feel when you're afraid of something? What's your kind of thinking process and feelings?
Yeah, it's really narrow, really daunting. It's just not. It just doesn't feel good.
It's
almost like trapped.
Yeah, there you go. It's almost like claustrophobic. You said use the word narrow, and this is what we see with patients all the time. And some of you may, I had a patient, and he called me up and he's like, hey, Regan, my back still hurts. Should I get the surgery? And I'm like, well, we just treated your back about a month ago, and you've still got about 11 months of regeneration. So if you really want to, absolutely. But I wouldn't, I would say, let's give this thing a little more time. And he was coming in, getting his therapies, but he's just in that fear mode, and so I know what it feels like. The good news about it is I just saw him yesterday, that same patient. Now he's 3 months through, and he's like, I'm so glad I didn't. I'm like 70% better. So now he's on track. But when you go to the lack, you're like, lack of time. I don't have more time for this. I've got to get this thing handled. That's when you just start clicking. And that's when you can make really poor decisions when it comes to your health. Sometimes it's absolutely necessary. So don't get me wrong. There's other patients that we've sent in, and they've literally had a physical obstruction in their spine and they needed the surgery. But in so many cases, it's just not been necessary. But what usually happens on fear is we try to cover it up with anger. And so that's the third step in the scarcity cycle, is when we get angry, we start blaming other people. And when there's blame and when there's anger, that's when entitlement sets in. And it's like, nope, you did this to me. It's your fault. And Kate, have you seen that in our society right now? This anger and entitlement, I think it's really polarized when it comes to vaccines, right? It's like there's all these people who are like, you idiot, you should get vaccinated, or you idiot, you got vaccinated. What are you thinking? And it's like, well, hey, why can we not, where's this anger and entitlement coming from? But what are your thoughts on that, Cade?
No, I think that's a really good, a great analogy of what's going on. And yeah, I think when things get polarized, the way the media has done recently is it does create that scarcity cycle. There's like zero abundance mindset. If you're watching any news channel, I don't care what channel it is, there is like zero abundance mindset going on there. It's like a zero-sum game, and there's not enough, and there's lots of fear, lots of frustration and entitlement of what people deserve and don't. So no, I think that's a really good analogy. And this is where it really does turn into, at the end there, a zero-sum game when you fall into this scarcity cycle. And I pose the question to the group here: anyone ever felt like this? Anyone ever get stuck in that scarcity cycle? And I think everyone does at some stage. And it's really like starting with gratitude. If you can, flip yourself out of that, it's so important. But yeah, it's a scary cycle. Scarcity, scary. You take the scene.
Yeah, it kicks in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you take the CIT out of there, and it's scary.
There you go. Yes, very scary. I see what you're saying. I didn't get it. Sorry, I was a little slow on that one, but I see.
It's all right.
Scary. But so entitlement is a big thing, because now when you're entitled, you've suddenly given away your responsibility. I think people don't realize that the entitled person is the one who owns the room. It's like the narcissist. They can control everything. And the person who's blaming and entitled, and that's what we have going on in our society right now, because the abundance cycle really should be the responsibility cycle, because responsibility simply means your ability to choose your response. So how are you responding to your health right now? Are you blaming someone else for your poor health? Are you saying that everyone got you sick, or it was China, or it was, whatever you want to believe? But really, at the end of the day, if we all took responsibility for our health and we said, I want to work with a creative team, people who are cooperative, people who look for opportunities in health, and they aren't stuck down one pharmaceutical alleyway, people who actually think with ingenuity, and then people who look for exponential health opportunities for me, that's who I want to work with. And I don't want to work with people, because medication is the scarcity cycle, because most medication, it starts depleting your internal systems. You start needing other medications just to handle the side effects. And then you do have a depletion, and it's a zero-sum game. You're not actually correcting the problem, because just because you're on insulin, or just because you're on Lipitor and your numbers look good in your labs, that does not mean the problem doesn't exist. The problem's still there. You're just masking the symptom. And so this whole depletion and entitlement, when we get into this scarcity cycle, we think if Cade's healthy, I can't be healthy. He can do that, but I can't, because I've got different genes, or I grew up, I was sprayed with more glyphosate than Cade was, and that's why I got more autoimmunity. And that's why, we could get in this whole weird thing, right, Cade? And we could go into the zero-sum game where it's like one person wins and everyone else loses. And that's the scarcity cycle, and it's a frustrating way to live your life. But I can tell you right now that most mainstream medicine is built around scarcity. And if you get on the media, and if you're watching the scarcity cycle unfold before your eyes, it's here more than ever, because it's the only way you can get healthy is if you are vaccinated, for example. Or if you're a person who doesn't agree with the vaccination, then the only way you can stay healthy is not get vaccinated. And so it's just really interesting, because there's so many other aspects of health that are so much more important that we need to be talking about. So let's jump in now that you have some context around this abundant way of practicing medicine. Let's talk about the testing that is necessary to get you where you want to go. So we're going to go through stool, saliva, and adrenals. So where do you want to start, Cade? Or blood, stool, and adrenals. So where do you want to start, Cade? Which one sounds best to you?
Let's start with blood. Right now we have at our clinics we have a little fall special, because we want people to come in and get their blood work done. So if you haven't had your blood labs ran in the last 6 months, come in and get it done. We have a coupon code. Hopefully everyone received that. You get $100 off on the lab with the review. That's like, it's 20% off. So saves a nice chunk of change, and you can get a nice format of what's going on and where you need to go for the future. Some of you are already in programs, and that's already included in it. Diane's wondering, can I pay now and then do it in a couple months? Yeah, I'm sure we could work that out. Call into the clinic, and we can get something figured out. But I'm sure that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, let's go through it. So the most important place when you're starting with your health, if you want to stay in an abundant mindset, you have to deal with reality, right? So a lot of people think abundance is all I have to do is think these gorgeous thoughts, and it's like the law of attraction. If I just, put up my vision board, I think that stuff's cool, but you got to take action on it. And that's even more important. If you take action and you're moving in the right direction, that's when you start to get momentum. And momentum and consistency is more important. Those two traits, in health are what lead to resiliency. And then resiliency is what gets you to that finish line where you have a compressed morbidity. You die fast, you die happy, you die healthy, you have health to your years, and we add years to your life. So that starts with a blood test. So we take your blood, and this blood test, as you notice, is different than probably what your doctors ran, because we're going to go through and give you complete profiles and a complete summary of everything that's going on from a blood chemistry perspective. And so this particular patient, one of the things we look at, let me share a different one that's just a little more comprehensive. But when you look at blood labs, we're going to share with you, there's three primary colors. There's red, there's yellow, and there's pink. And these are really important because what they show us is how far off your body is. And so just by learning what these markers are, this is how we can determine your prognosis. So a lot of patients, they're like, well, how do you know what to do with me? And so it's like, well, we base it on labs. I had a patient in the other day, and she's a nurse, and I just went through her labs, and because she handed them over, her University of Utah labs. And I just went through and I said, okay, we got this, your GGT's off, your blood urea nitrogen proteins are off, DHEA's off. And we just went through all these things. She's like, my doctor never talked to me about that. And my doctor, and she was so frustrated because she's in the medical field and she's been dealing with this issue for almost 6 years. She's like, no one can figure it out. And so within just a 5-minute look at her blood labs from a functional medicine perspective, we were able to draw out patterns of disharmony and dysfunction faster than she'd had, more information than she'd had in 6 years. So that's the beauty of these labs. And if you have someone who's trained in functional medicine, whether you work with us or someone else, make sure when you're getting your blood work done, the only real scientific way of doing this when you're fostering health and working in the abundance cycle is someone who is trained in functional medicine. So all of our providers at all of our clinics have functional medicine training. So here's one of the labs that we use for those of you who are going to get your labs ran soon. Get those done. Do not hesitate on this. So here's what we look at. So if you look at yellow, this particular patient had 21 markers in the yellow. And this is those patterns where you're like, something's wrong. I don't know exactly what it is, but I want to get this problem taken care of. So this is a big deal. The red is where you've got a big issue. This is where disease patterns are building up. This particular patient has 9 positive findings there. So we times this by 2, so that's 18. So Kate, can you do the math for me? So that's 21 at 18. And then in the critical place, the alarm area, these are pink. That counts for 3 points. So she had 6 in the alarm. So that's 21 at 18 adds 6. So the total amount of positive findings that we detect in your blood labs are what dictates the amount of care that it's going to be necessary in order for you to get your health reclaimed. What would we end up with? 45. So the ideal is when we get you in the low teens or in the single digits. We've only had one person who's had a clean slate, and that was Jenny, our health coach. Hers is, she's about ready to have a baby now, but she's, just the pinnacle of health, and early 20s as well.
She didn't have any yellows either?
Nothing.
Whoa.
Like you can look at it. I was like,
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Absolutely remarkable.
That is amazing.
Yes. So how do you know if you don't guess? I have patients say, well, do you think I should take vitamin D? What about zinc? Or, hey, I just read this article on magnesium. Should I be taking these things? I'm like, well, I don't know. What does a vitamin D deficiency feel like? Well, they're like, I don't know. I'm like, neither do I. So that's why we test. I mean, you can swallow a lot of supplements, but who knows if those supplements are going to do you any good until you get a test. And so here's what we do. We take you through and we look at all the imbalances. And we show you in great detail how your kidneys are functioning, your liver. We'll show you if you're prone to osteopenia or osteoporosis. We'll show you how well you're absorbing your proteins and digesting those. We'll show you your liver function, how your immune system's functioning. We'll look at all the electrolytes so we can see, are your adrenal glands under stress and under attack? Are you dehydrated? We'll look at your blood levels, your iron, your ferritin, your total iron binding capacity. These are all critical. And then look at your lipid profile. We run a thyroid panel. Kate, I think this is my biggest frustration, is patients come in and they've never had a comprehensive thyroid panel ran, and they have all the thyroid symptoms. And they say, nope, my doctor ran it, everything he could possibly run on my thyroid. I'm like, oh, good. So it's not your thyroid. Do you mind if I look at your labs? And they show me, and it's two markers. It's TSH and free T4. And those are going to be normal. You look at this patient, her TSH is 1.83. Perfect, right? That's no problem. Free T4, 1.24. There's no problem, Regan. What are you talking about? Well, when we looked at your T3, it was actually low, and that's the active thyroid hormone. And actually, it's really darn low. It's about half of where we want it. And then we looked at her homocysteine, and it's through the roof, so her body's just totally inflamed, which is another marker we look at, are these inflammatory markers. Did she have vitamin D deficiency? Now I can tell her definitively, yes, you need let's get some vitamin D in your body. And so these are all really critical things. Luckily, her white blood cells look pretty darn healthy, so no issues there.
How did you already go through her liver enzymes?
Well, I just said we checked the liver enzymes, but yeah, her liver enzymes, her ALT was a little low, so her liver was struggling just to process things and metabolize hormones.
And that would make sense, because that's where the majority of T4 is converted to T3, and the total T3 is down.
Yep. Yeah, so poor liver function, poor digestive function, which we'll talk about next, is the digestive system. So yeah, these are all really interesting, when you look at these, because you also get a detailed analysis of what's going on in your own health. So how many times do you get a lab report and you're like, I have no idea what that means? So now we actually give you the data, and we're explaining it in very simple terms so that you have 100% clarity on your health. So that's some interesting things, some insights for you. And then what we do is we prioritize it, because if we focus on everything at once, then nothing gets accomplished. But what we find is if we can focus on the one or two big priorities, then we take out 100 different things in the process. And so that's what we do in our functional index. And then we look at your overall nutrient levels. So this is where we can look at, are you eating enough carbohydrates or resistant starches? Are you getting your vegetables in, which is kind of the carbohydrate index? How about your vitamins? If you're taking a lot of vitamins, are they even being absorbed? And what we find is a lot of people, they're not even being absorbed. How about your mineral levels? What do those look like? Your hydration. Are you getting enough protein in? And what's your fat levels? Are you eating enough fat? And so all these things are really critical. 100% means 100% depleted. As you can see, this patient, 100% depleted in her resistant starch and vegetables, 100% depleted in vitamins, not very many minerals, 64% depleted in minerals, 40% depleted in hydration, which that's going to cause some serious brain fog and muscle cramping, and then 12% depleted in proteins, but she was getting enough fat in.
And I think it's wild how often the hydration issue comes up. Is that I think every lab that I've seen, someone most people have some form of hydration and mineral imbalance, where we're not charging our system enough with proper electrolytes.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. And so so this is where it's really important, because as we look at this now, instead of playing guessing games with your health, you're actually doing something proactive. So then we look at nutritional deficiency. So the most expensive supplement you can take is the wrong one. So many of you are spending a fortune on your supplements, and your toilet has all this richness in it that's not going into your body and not being used properly. So So this is where you can see, how's your magnesium? Well, should I be taking it? Should I take vitamin D, DHEA? Do I need more B vitamins? Do I need more selenium, more zinc? All these things are really critical. And if you're supplementing with this, you can actually cause an imbalance if you're getting the wrong things in. So this is where, once again, do not play guessing games with your health. You can play it on Halloween. You can dress up and play all kinds of games, but don't play guessing games with your health. So this is our whole process. Very important test. One of the foundational pieces.
Yeah, so comprehensive, and thank you for sharing that, Regan. That's really, I think that shows people a lot about the depth. And some of you that are on this are already in programs, and you've probably experienced this and some of the expertise from the functional medicine providers. But we had a question come in: can I purchase this for my friends? So we have promotion right now. So typically our comprehensive medical review with blood labs is $500. We've discounted that by $100 for the month of September. For anyone that's hasn't had their labs run in the last 6 months, if it's for a friend, absolutely, you can. I think that's a great gift to give any friend, relative, family member. It's a beautiful thing to have this information and content so that you can make educated decisions about your health and move forward with a good plan of action. So you can give us a call. I posted our number on the chat box, 801-872-8699. That is our group line, and then you can pick whatever location's closest to you when you call in, and then the team will assist you with that. Regan, we got about 5 more minutes. Do you think you can
perfect.
Go through one more? I know you wanted to go through stool or saliva.
Yeah, let's look at saliva, and then I'll jump in a program. This is perfect. So blood work is where we start, but then there's another test that we may run, and this is a salivary test. And then based on how your blood work looks, will also dictate if you need a stool test. And so the salivary test is really critical because circadian rhythms are what program all of our genes. So if you want healthy expression of your cells, you need to be in tune with the sun and the moon. And you may be like, oh, Regan, that's so woo-woo. But actually it's not. There's some real definitive data that shows that our circadian rhythms predict your health. They predict your blood sugar levels. They also turn on or turn off different bacterial species in your gut. So we've been able to help people get rid of Crohn's disease just by getting them on a proper sleep and wake cycle. So this is what the adrenal profile looks like. And this is through Genova, but you collect your saliva between, 30 minutes after you wake up. And then again, between 11 and 1. And then in the evening between 3 and 5, and then right before bed. And so you can see this patient, his adrenal levels, his cortisol was through the roof. He was stressed out of his mind. He'd been traveling for about 5 years, doing all these seminars and presentations, loved it, but it just ruined his home life. And now he's dealing with the wreck at home with his family and his kids. And so you can see here, we want these numbers to be in the green. And so this is a really critical piece to the overall puzzle. Most doctors, you don't go to your doctor and they're like, well, let's see how stressed you really are. It's just, they'll tell you how stressed you are and offer you Wellbutrin, or maybe you need just a little bit of a Xanax or some benzodiazepine that will help. What we want to say is, well, let's turn on those pathways that allow you to relax. Let's use a nasal spray like Salank or some glutastat, something to really activate the brain in a calming way. But this is a real critical piece. And then we have the stool test for those, of you who need that. But here's the definitive process that this is where the abundance cycle really comes in, is with the program design. And so many of you have this program design. You've seen me create it. This is what we've done to try to simplify your ability to see everything we're doing in a program. And how many of you have actually ever gone to a conventional doctor's office and had them give you a program design that actually has all the phases of care written out, and shows you everything that needs to happen. Probably not very many of you, but because I've never seen this. This is actually, I created this form, but I did it so that I could communicate great with each one of you. So, so the program design, once we take your blood work, so Kay, do you remember the patient? Let's see, she had 21 yellows,
18 and 6.
And 6. And so the total was 45?
Yep.
Okay. So I mean, this is what we'll do with your blood work, and then we can take your program design and we'll say, okay, we got inflammation, there's thyroid, and so we can plug in everything that's going on in your health, and we have priorities, and then we can put in your digestive totals and your adrenal totals, so we can give you a very objective number so that you know where we're starting. This is the reality check. So this is where you can be grateful because you say, okay, now I have clarity. And then we get into the creativity and the opportunities and cooperation, because now we go into what therapies are going to be necessary. So maybe acupuncture, maybe chiropractic care. The next is we go through the 3 phases of peptides. Well, some of you may need to remove the issues. Very first, remove the triggers. And that's where LL37 is really important, or melanotan or KPV. Or maybe you need to remove all the stress off the nervous system. So we put you on epitalin to reset those circadian rhythms. And then we want to go into the repair and regenerate. And that's where maybe you're on CJC 1295 or sarcotropin or, ipamorelin. So these things are all really critical. And then we share with you the supplements and herbs you're going to need based on the labs. The next phase of this is the teaching, where, hey, what do you need to do as far as detoxification and nutrition? Maybe some of you need to be on liver detox, which is, you get rid of some of the animal proteins for a couple of weeks and you just focus on getting the liver cleaned out. Some of you may need to be on only animal proteins because you're having immune reactions in your gut. And so we just want you on meat for a couple of weeks or a month. And then we show you what exercises are needed and then what hacks that you really want to focus on based on what we're teaching. And then we go through the entire next 18 months. We have the next steps. And so the end result of this is having 100% clarity in your health. So it all starts with that blood lab. So if you want to stay in this abundant mindset when it comes to your health, get some reality, get your blood work done if you haven't had it done. If you have had it done, and or maybe you have the requisite form and some of you haven't had your blood drawn, well, go get your blood drawn right away, because we want to jump into this with you as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's really easy to procrastinate. You get the requisition and it's like you got to go in fasting and you find all sorts of reasons why you got to wait till tomorrow to get it done. So get it done today. Love you guys. We got to run. We're out of time. Thank you so much, Regan. Appreciate the content today. That was really fun. So went over abundance cycle, scarcity cycle, and really how to take your health to the next level. So give our office a call. Get your blood labs done if you haven't in the last 6 months. Get them done. I think that's an easy way. We've done a huge discount, 100 month of September. Fall's starting up. We want to get everyone on the right trajectory for their health. So get there and take a look at thesmartmedicine.com. We talked a little bit about Intergenius. That is a great BDNF increaser for brain function. So love you guys. We'll be back same time, same place next week. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.